Good evening, Ruskin enjoyers. I hope you're alright, because it's time for a review. Yes, what's going on? Well, this is new. This is a new video format that I thought I should do from here and now. Basically, did you see my recent video where I went and looked at all the recent rust doors that we had over the past 6 to 7 months recent? Well, just following that, a lot of people liked it. I got quite a lot of decent feedback, and I realised I was a little bit too brief with that video for all the rust doors. Why don't we expand upon it? Why don't we have a bit more of a structured format where we look at previous rust doors and then we go ahead and talk about, did everything match up to expectations? So not only will it be a review of the actual skins in said rust door, but it will also be a review of myself. I make predictions. Did they turn out exactly as I imagined? So, of course, sometimes I'm probably too cautious. Sometimes I'm probably, I overestimate certain things. Maybe things turn out wrong, You could have reasons now to be upset with me. Or you can have reasons to be happy with me. Either way, you get the idea. So basically, we're going to structure this in a format of, we're going to remind ourselves of that rust door. We're going to talk about our initial thoughts back then. And then we'll move on to the likes of what prices did we suggest when we went to do the buy orders on them? Did we actually make any purchases? And what was the outcome? Now, if things didn't match up to expectations, we got to explain why. And then we'll reach a conclusion. Does that sound good? So, for the start, we have the likes of the May 23, 2024 rust door. I'm sorry about that. And you might be wondering, is 4 weeks enough? I think that's more than enough time to, judge and review skins. Normally I sit there and say 2 weeks, so 4 weeks should be plenty of time. So let's go back and remind ourselves of the May 23, 2024 rust door. So this is it right here. Now, let's kind of remind you of our initial thoughts back then. In the lead up to May 2024, we were expecting the idea of potentially having a complete the sets in May. We had it in 2023. I was kind of hyping it up, the potential of it, but it didn't officially happen. But this happened. We had a very weird rust door where we had skins that were in the workshop for like years, almost a year. Like it was hard to explain, but looking at it, you could sit there and say this is like a pseudo complete the sets. Because we got a continuation for the Neon Storage Collection, Training Collection, Toxic Deplorable Collection, Fish Collection. It was very weird to see, but hey, no one was really complaining. Plus, of course, you could also see the likes of the Abyss Collection, Overheat got a continuation, Ditto, you get the idea. So, cool. It seems like it was an unofficial complete the sets, but let's also talk about the actual skins we see here. So, surprise, surprise, after a good many attempts in trying to expand the Neon Storage Collection, Duck actually got a small box accepted. Now, he made these attempts like here and there every few months over the past few years, and Fuel Storage was accepted. Awesome, cool. Or was it? Basically, when I first looked at that, and I was just sitting here like, that's going to sell an absurd amount. And yeah, it did. It did over 46,000 subscribers. But I wasn't surprised by that. What I was questioning was, were we actually going to see this being continued? Would Facepunch be willing to accept more of them? Well, we know what that was in the end, the outcome for that. But back then, I don't know. I was questioning it. So hopping back over to the likes of here, we could go review some of these older videos that I had. When I look at my predictions video for that, I was just completely unsure how to go about the likes of the Neon Small Fuel Storage. Now, I did have some other videos that I made back then, as you can see the likes of here, Neon Small Storage Future. I wasn't sure. I was putting out my thoughts in the meantime back then. I was trying to get people aware of, I think far too many people are going to be jumping onto it. And, well, it kind of turned out quite alright, didn't it? But we weren't sure back then. So I was making a fuss just to keep people aware of what potentially could go wrong. So, whilst it sold a lot, we should also question some of these other skins. What was the main skin that I looked at that I was feeling very, very confident in? It was actually the Armored Double Door, the Toxic Armored Double Door to be precise. So hopping back over to here, Toxic Armored Double Door, the main thing that I was talking about with this was based on the fact that we just don't see that many Armored Double Doors being accepted. And I was expecting that this was going to turn out exactly like the Bombshell Armored Door did last year. I imagine that this wasn't going to see any other competition. I mean, we did get a Twitch drop, but I mean, didn't really matter that much. And by the time we looked at this again around, the next summer, aka more specifically talking about this one, I imagine this was going to match up exactly like how this did, double in price. So we just had to wait quite a while. I actually did jump in and buy some of these as well. So if we were to see this behaving exactly like this, things should work out quite nicely in the future. A sheer lack of competition was the main thing. And if I look at all these prices once again, you can see how so many of these double armored doors have risen up in price ever so nicely, mainly due to the fact that we just have hardly any options. And yes, we did question the idea of how often do you even get to a point where you can reach up to a double armoured double door. I mean, it didn't seem to matter too much, and I felt confident in it, and I made my point that I felt like that was the thing that I was going to focus mostly. Then I also looked at the likes of the Overheat boots and gloves. I felt optimistic for that set because that was literally an instant continuation from the previous week. So from May 16, we had the hoodie and pants being accepted, and when those boots and gloves appeared, those hoodie and pants went up to about $4 each. So I thought maybe everything will just keep rolling on from there. Maybe we'll get some instant continuations being produced. We'll talk more about that in a second. And, well, you know, I felt optimistic for it. It felt like it was in a good spot. I also looked at the likes of the Fish roadside pants. I said it myself. That looked to be a dark horse investment. Whilst everybody was focusing on all these other skins, that right there was not getting that much attention, and I couldn't help but assume that Mr. Shedmon, the skin creator, very likely could have gone ahead and produced a continuation, a new core piece, because we only had tier 2 armor, and that kilt sold less than compared to these other tier 2 pieces. It just felt like everything was lining up to being perfectly fine for it. Well, we'll talk more about the outcome in a bit. Now, those were some somewhat positive things. What about the negatives? Well, back then, during this week, we had Rust Kingdoms. And if you can remember, with the likes of the Twitch drops, we had a very interesting looking garage door that was being given away for free. MP Low and S-Fans garage door. Now, looking at that, I imagine that this Ramen Garage Door probably wouldn't sell too much. Maybe it might look a lot more appealing as the week went by. Turns out it did almost 30,000 sales. People really did like that garage door, it seems. But I was just not sure if that was going to hold, if the price was going to be okay. I just felt like that, you know what? There's a very good chance, and I know of it, there's going to be more Twitch drops on the horizon. There's going to be even more skins, being accepted, which of course did happen. I can't help but assume the Ramen Garage Door probably will struggle. We had many garage doors the previous year where during the likes of the summer, a lot of the cool looking garage doors that we had around then suddenly started losing value because more cooler ones started appearing. It's an inevitability. And of course Twitch drops as well, you've got to remember that. So I was just in a position of, I'm not really sure of that. I'm going to wait and see how many sales it had, and of course it had a little bit too much. He thought. And then the training jacket, whilst initially I looked at that and thought, oh, that's pretty neat. Again, when you look at all the jackets that appeared during that period of time, we also had 2 jacket skins as a Twitch drop. And when you look at all of these skins in total so far, we've had a lot of jacket skins so far compared to previous years. It started to look like this potentially was going to be in trouble, along with all the other jackets. I felt like I was right in that regard. So I thought, you know what? I don't really want to go too I don't really want to engage it that much. I will probably just stick with doing a buy order. So those were my predictions, and now we can start looking at the outcomes. Right then, so hopping back over to the likes of the abnormals, yes, I actually record all of the prices that I suggest. We keep them in my Discord here, so I can quickly go over and talk about these prices that we suggested. So when we did the abnormals, that was the sales that we could see, and I was like, this is starting to look very questionable. I'm not sure how I'm going to go about all of this. Now, I was happy with the sales that the Toxic Armor Double Door had, and I was very pleasantly surprised to see how the Fish Roadside Pants turned out, but it was abnormals. Not all of the skins here were abnormal. So, looking at the likes of the Neon Small Fuel Storage, it did over 40,000 subscribers by Wednesday night, and I was thinking, you know what? Based on all the previous Rust doors that we had over the past few weeks, that's looking a little bit too absurd. I don't feel confident in that, and I only suggested 80 cents to $1.20. That was my suggestion. When I looked at the training jacket, I thought, yep, that sold a little bit too much. We've had far too many jacket skins in such a recent amount of time. Plus, how many different black jackets do we have now? It wasn't that special in my eyes. So I looked at it and I thought, I only want to do 70 cents to $1. When I looked at the Ramen Garage Door, and I'm kicking myself because I got this wrong. And I'll put my hands up and I'll say I definitely got this wrong. I thought that sold far too much. I thought it would be a problem. I didn't even consider the idea that that would potentially, have a continuation. Oh, we're going to talk about that in a bit. But yeah, I looked at that and I said, I can't help but assume in the future there will be more garage doors that are going to look just as cool, and people will probably like those instead of this, and it'll lose its attention. I only suggested $1 to $1.50. Yep, I definitely got that wrong, and I'll admit that. Looking at the Toxic Armor Double Door, I felt very optimistic for it. It didn't sell too much. I thought that was going to work out perfectly fine as a long-term investment. So I looked at that and I said $1.72 to $2.20. I accepted the idea of this potentially could still dip in price at some point in the future, autumn, fall seasonal dip. I know. But I still thought it was going to hold up strong, exactly like how the bombshell double armoured door did last year. And by the time we look at it again next year in the summer 2025, it'll probably double in price. Well, we'll have to wait and see with that. So, in regards to the likes of these other skins here, Sweet Dreams AK-47, it was very bright and colourful. I reminded myself of the likes of the MK Ultra. I reminded myself of the two collections from the previous year, Redemption and Chameleon, how those skin collections, they were initially weapon-only collections, but they were bright and colourful and people liked them. I thought Sweet Dreams and MK Ultra could potentially be the same, but we only had an MK Ultra AK-47 and a Sweet Dreams AK-47 at that point. With the anime AK that came out during the same week as a Twitch drop, you remember the Mizkif AK, I'm sure you do. I thought that wouldn't sell too much. It sold a little bit more, and I did kind of reflect with the likes of the Rainbow Pony AK-47. I thought, you know what, it's done very similar numbers, maybe that will work out quite alright. I actually looked at the AK and thought it would probably perform better compared to most other AKs. So in terms of the barter for that, I went up to $1.50 to $2.20. Yeah, we'll talk more about that in a bit, won't we? Ditto MP5 I didn't have a lot of strong feelings for, but that wasn't abnormal. Now, out of the Overheat boots and gloves, the gloves were abnormal, not the boots. So I looked at the gloves and I thought, you know what? $1.49. It looks like we very likely will be seeing some Overheat continuations at some point in the future. I looked at the gloves and I said 90 cents to $1.25. That's what I went with. And with the likes of the Abyss boots, I was expecting the boots were going to perform and behave exactly like the Abyss road sign gloves earlier this year, which just rose up in price ever so nicely because it didn't sell that much in comparison to the rest of the collection. I went ahead and I said 90 cents to $1.20. So we've gone ahead and we've pointed out all the prices. Now with the regular skins, Ditto MP5, 60 cents to 80 cents. I felt like that wasn't going to get that much attention and it would lose its value. I looked at the Overheat boots. I felt strongly with the likes of the Overheat roadside gloves. I suggested 75 cents to 85 cents. And the Fish roadside pants, as I said, with it like just being in a very interesting spot, I thought that was going to be the dark horse investment. I suggested 80 cents to 90 cents. So that right there were the suggestions. Now we need to go ahead and take a look at the actual Rust Door now and talk about the outcomes. So, what was the outcome for the Neon Small Fuel Storage? The very next day, we got the food storage accepted. So that fuel storage actually did turn out perfectly fine. But what followed were a lot of people just assuming that all of the other storages were just going to be perfectly fine, quick flip investments. Now the fuel has been the best performing small box out of the others, probably because it was the first and all of these followed, so spike in demand, spike in price. When the food storage appeared, the fuel storage went all the way up to $4. That has been its highest point ever since then. Now, it's kind of gradually went down to around $3 for a while, then around $2. Now it's just kind of getting closer and closer to its Rust Door price. We're reaching a point where it's quite obvious that far too many people bought this compared to genuine demand. There's far too much stock compared to genuine demand. So what happens to that excess stock? It gets thrown onto the Steam market, thrown onto third-party sites. If I were to go take a look at this in the Steam market right now, you'll see for yourself that there happens to be quite a lot. So dear, 557. Now if I were to just quickly grab this extension, turn on to look at it in dollars, you can see that it's not exactly doing super great in terms of retaining its value. If you bought this, right, go away. If you bought this, you'd probably only make a good few pennies profit if you can sell this. And there's a lot of people trying to sell theirs now, but for a fairly reasonable amount of time, it was fairly nice and thin. There weren't that many big fat quantities, but now people are kind of getting a little bit, I need to make some money back. Sad cost fallacy. But initially, for the past few weeks, it did work out very nicely as an investment. So if you bought that and sold it and made a good profit, props to you. Good job. I wasn't 100% sure. I was too cautious. Lessons learned, but I don't think we're going to ever have another situation like this ever again. So we'll see how many small boxes we do eventually get. I was under the assumption potentially 6 to 10. Obviously, with the recent Rust Door that we had, we took a bit of a break, but will we return to it? We don't know yet. So that turned out to be an interesting result, but the expectations of potential problems are now starting to be seen. So in the future, what's the likely outcome for that? I still believe it's going to go below its Rust Door price around October time. And that will be the better point in time to jump in, buy as many as you can, wait it out until post-Christmas, January 2025, then sell them. You're very likely going to be walking away with some decent profit then. Cool. So, Neon Small Fuel Storage, I feel like I was a little bit too cautious with it. But you know what I did do? I did remove my second buy order and I put down a stronger buy order. but I have removed that since because things are starting to get a little bit awkward. So cool. Right, training jacket. I feel like that's just matched, perfectly matched up to expectations. There's a lot of them that are bought. Now, one thing I didn't really talk too much about was the fact that this sold far too much in comparison to its actual collection, and there's nothing really else that can be accepted in its collection that could give this a nice boost. So as you can see, someone's listed 72 of them. Oh, great, awesome. So you bought these and they just want to instantly sell them and make a loss. Other people. So yeah, unfortunately, that did go down, but we kind of expected that. And as I can just quickly hop over to here, when you look at the training collection as a whole, look at the Hoodie and Pants subscribers, just under 14,000. Look at the tier 2, on average, let's say 11,000. Let's look at the tier 3, on average, about 16,000. That did 28,600 subscribers. I feel like there's a little bit too many of those being bought compared to the rest of this, and it very likely will keep struggling from here and now. How long for? Don't know. But initially, for a reasonable amount of time, it actually had less than 100 quantity on the Steam market. So it kind of held its price for a while, but now it's starting to slip, and it looks like there's going to be some problems. Ramen Garage Door. Well then, I was definitely wrong with this. And, well, let's just go see how it initially behaved. So for a fairly decent amount of time, it actually retained its value. So as I go over to here, just to quickly point this out to you, the blue lines indicate sales, all right, so you can see that, all right, but let's just quickly hide it. As you can see, it initially came out, and it actually did a perfectly fine job just staying stable. It was selling for around $4, the price it sold for. But then, as time went on, we did happen to see a continuation. We had a sushi sheet metal door being accepted. We had 94 sales. The price went up, and it boosted all the way up to about $5. Then it started to cool off. And then recently, a certain Mr. Wiljum turned around, uploaded a video, and he said, oh yeah, the Ramen Garage Door is my new favourite garage door skin. The influencers! But basically, a popular YouTuber sits there, showcases it in a video and says, this is my new favourite skin. And, well, all his viewers agree, and they jump in, and they buy it out. So that went all the way up to around $7.50 at one point. Seems to have calmed down a bit, but it's going to probably be at a new level of price now. So initially, for a fairly decent amount of time, it's sitting around $5. I can't help but assume it's going to probably stick around $6 for the foreseeable future, potentially. But will it still dip down around October time? Kind of still expect that, but I'm talking about throughout the rest of the summer. So throughout here till July, we'll see. Cool. And of course, keep an eye out for those potential continuations. Double door. We've also seen the likes of a large box. There's some interesting things for this collection. FaZe definitely produced something that a lot of people are enjoying. But I've just got to quickly bring this up. I didn't mention it earlier, but I should now. When we first saw this, a lot of people thought there was potential problems with copyright. Let's just quickly go over that real quickly. What he produced was perfectly fine. Yes, he probably looked at many other designs in real life, but he made his own version. Now, initially, when people started yapping about that, I actually jumped in and bought 10 of them. And, well, as I looked further into it, I saw no problems with it, and evidently there are no problems with it. But I bought 10 of them, and I didn't think too much of it, but of course, in the lead up to when we did the abnormal bilders, I actually gave a bunch of them away. That's what I do. I buy skins and I give them away on my streams, so feel free to say hello to me on my streams. So anyway, that turned out perfectly fine. I was wrong. I'll accept my mistake there. I was too cautious, and evidently, when a certain individual sits there and says it's his favourite skin, everybody just jumps in and buys it. So, will that work out all right for the future? We'll have to wait and see, but I still believe it will keep going down a fair bit for the foreseeable future. But for now, it should be stable, so we'll see. Moving on, Toxic Armor Double Door. You're comfortably just sitting there, nothing wrong. I did sit here and say it feels like it's going to be a long-term investment. I don't think we'll be seeing any more armor double doors being accepted this year. We shall see. Again, we haven't seen anything like that right now. We have seen some people submitting more double armored doors, but they weren't accepted. So if you bought this for $2.49, you could sell it now and get your money back. You could maybe make a little bit of profit. But look at that. It's nice, it's thin, its future is looking nice. We'll see how that turns out. Can't help but assume it'll probably rise up to $4, potentially around post-Christmas. Let's see if it goes even higher, but around summer next year, I hope to see it double in price. We shall see. As I said, with the likes of this year, suddenly sheet metal double doors became common, and that turned into a problem, didn't it? I hope armor double doors doesn't turn common. Right, so that's okay for now. Sweet dreams. Evidently, you did go down in price. It's unfortunate, but we did see more skins being produced and accepted. Now, recently, we haven't had one for a reasonable amount of time, unfortunately, but you are currently sitting there and performing better compared to most AK-47s. So at the very least, I was right in that regard. So if I quickly bring up all the AKs that came out so far this year, take a look at all of them. How many of them are down by around 50%? And as you can see, that is quite a lot. But we've also got quite a lot of AKs this year, so it's not too hard to understand why we have problems. But yeah, so many of them down to around $1, yet you've done a reasonable job retaining your value, you're bright, you're colourful, and hopefully we do see more of these skins in the future, but, you know, whilst they're being produced, they're not being accepted at the moment. So we'll see how that turns out. Alright, so that did go down in price a fair bit. I will probably sit there and say I could be in the wrong there, but, you know, I did stick with just doing a buy order, so that at least worked out all right. Hey, you can judge me. Feel free to comment. Ditto MP5, again, not surprised, like 60 cents to 80 cents. It's down to $1.15. There was someone that did buy out a bunch of these. I thought that might get manipulated, but doesn't seem to have really changed that much. Now we can talk about overheat boots and gloves. Well then, look at that. Now I have to bring this up. The skin creator, Johnny Oldboy, did in fact produce both Tier 2 and Tier 3 armor. It just hasn't been accepted. Now, we've gone through a weird period of time where we haven't seen any core pieces. I'm talking hoodie pants, Tier 2, Tier 3. We haven't seen any of that being accepted for about a month now. More specifically with hoodie and pants and Tier 3, we haven't had an acceptance for about 6 weeks now. I don't know what's going on with Face Punch. I don't know why they haven't accepted anything like this. But the skin creator did produce the skins, they just weren't accepted. I feel like I was right to assume that this was going to happen in regards to the skins being produced. I'm just surprised to see they weren't accepted. Who knows, maybe next week, or maybe the July Force White roster. We'll see. But as of now, looks like that turned out to be a bit of a problem. As you can see, the price went down to 86 cents for the boots. And of course, the overheat roadside gloves went down to $1.22. Awkward. I did remove my buy orders for some of them. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. So sometimes you just got to be a little bit hopeful. Sometimes it turns out, doesn't go the way that you expected. So we tried. It didn't work out. But who knows? Maybe we still do see those continuations in the further future. We'll just have to wait and see. Looking at the likes of the Abyss boots, hey, that kind of matched up to expectations. Now, it didn't really go up in price that much, which is a bit unfortunate, but we don't have like tons of them on the Steam market. Still less than 100, but we do have these people here listing 20 and 20. That's not going to do any favours. But in the future, will things still work out perfectly fine for it? I hope so. But as you can see, all of the Abyss collection, except the Tier 3, kind of did pretty nicely during the summer. Certain skins now have kind of stagnated and prices have started to go down. That's Rust skins in general. So this can be applied to the likes of this. But those Abyss roadside gloves did reach up to $4 at one point. That was really cool. These did reach up to around $2 at one point, but it's kind of going down a fair bit. More people listing, other people. But yeah, it is what it is. Will they have a nicer future in the future? Will this collection remain fairly in demand? With that, if that takes place, I'm sure the boots will do better. The boots only did 9,500 subscribers, whereas compare that to like the hoodie and pants here, 14,000 subscribers. Tier 2, 16, 15,000 subscribers, and then Tier 3, 27,000. That's why the gloves worked out nicely. Will the boots, match up? We'll see. But these did go through the likes of the Easter dip, and they did survive that. It rarely went below its rust price, and now look at it. So hopefully the boots do, follow that. And then we have the fish roadside pants. Now, Skin Creator did in fact produce a continuation. We did see Tier 3 armor being produced. It's right here. Get a good look at that. It wasn't accepted. As I said, when I talked about the likes of the overheat, Face Punch just hasn't accepted Tier 3 armor for about 6 weeks now. I'd love to see it being accepted, but it hasn't happened, unfortunately. So, unfortunately, yeah, the pants, people got a little bit antsy. People started to, list them on the Steam market. Prices are starting to go down a fair bit. I actually removed a buy order earlier, so if I hop over to here and I'll show you, yeah, I started to get a whole bunch of them. I was like, yeah, I've got to remove that. I was the highest buy order. So that's like a 90-cent buy order there, and it still went down. It's unfortunate, but this is the outcome. Now, again, who knows? Maybe in the next Rust Door or the July Force White Rust Door, we'll probably see Fish Tier 3. Hopefully, maybe, possibly. But, yeah, it looked like it was in a perfectly fine spot, but unfortunately, it didn't reach or match to expectations, so that did go down a fair bit. So overall, looking at this, I would sit here and say expectations weren't really met. It's unfortunate. This is the conclusion. And as we get closer and closer to the likes of the autumn-fall seasonal dip, over to here. Whilst we've been seeing very, very, very good numbers for the player count, you know, that is great. That is amazing. Unfortunately, a lot of these skins just are kind of reaching points now. They're kind of stagnating. Now, the newer skins, well, as we slowly go through this week by week, you'll see that things do kind of start to slow down. Not only in terms of sales, but, you know, in terms of how high skin prices go up to and whatnot. This was a very interesting rust off for what it was. The pseudo complete the sets for May 2024. But, yeah, the only profit to be made was basically with the Neon Small Fuel Storage and the Ramen Garage Door. And if you bought in and sold them, congratulations, you did good. I was too cautious with some of my buy orders, but with my lowball buy orders, I'm still okay. But just remember this. Once we reach around October time, do not be surprised if a lot of these are even further down. It's unfortunate. It is what it is. I do hope to see continuations, but that's that. So, that is the conclusion. I hope this video format is interesting for you. I hope that you did walk away with some profit. If you made some loss, I'm very sorry about that. But I always sit here and say, not everything is a guarantee. Not everything works out perfectly fine. Don't put out too much money. Like, only invest with what you can lose. And yeah, so not exactly the best first video for a series, but it definitely kind of makes a point that not everything turns out perfectly fine. So we'll see how the, you know, all the more recent ones, you know, turned out. You know, next week we'll be doing May 30. We'll be discussing all of that as well. But for now, that's it. That's a wrap. Thank you very much for watching me. I greatly appreciate it. And yeah, catch you later. See you and goodbye. Hey, forgot to mention, I should have shown this off, but yeah, I bought 100 Toxic Armor double doors. So again, I treat that as a long-term investment. I bought it on an account that's completely exhausted. It can't do any more barters and whatnot. All it can really do is sell because, you know, it's been spending a lot of money. But again, look over to here. I also bought some fish kilts. Oh dear. Hey, I'm still optimistic. We'll see how things turn out in the future. I do hope to see more fish stuff, but all I can do is hope. So catch you later. See you and goodbye.